This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered legal, health, tax, professional advice. We're not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace professional medical advice. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or the management. This podcast may contain adult themes, so parental discretion is advised. Now today I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Jessica Haymeyer to the podcast. As the founder of Well Empowered, Dr. H combines science, empowerment, and faith to help people take ownership of their health in a truly transformative way. Her approach is rooted in both data-driven strategies and deep personal alignment, making health not just a goal, but a meaningful, sustainable journey. Whether it's honoring your body as sacred, surrendering weight struggles to God's guidance, or embracing wellness as an act of devotion, Dr. H brings wisdom and actionable insights to the table. Get ready for a conversation that will inspire you to approach your health with both intention and grace. Dr. H?
Hello, Lorna.
All right. So if you want to expound on your credentials, talk a little about the data collection, anything like that in the beginning that people can get a perspective, a perspective of who you are and what you're about, and the remarkable information that you bring to the table.
Yeah, well, just first and foremost, I would say what my work is in service of, and really what I'm here to be in service of, is each and every one of us thriving. So people thriving and inspiring others to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
And, the work that I do, I like to call it data-driven functional medicine or data-driven natural medicine, is really bringing science and heart and devotion together such that people are able to produce and sustain health outcomes that transform what's possible in their lives. And, just to speak a little bit more to the data-driven part, right? So when I'm working with people, I am listening for missing puzzle pieces around what symptoms they're dealing with or their health goals, whether it's around their heart health, and currently their heart health is the barrier to longevity, or maybe their digestion is a barrier to being fully present in this world because they're just, dealing with symptoms all day long and it's getting in the way of them fully living. Or maybe it's their weight. Maybe their weight, leads to joint pain, or they don't feel well, or they're pre-diabetic, or simply put, they have a hard time being present with others just because they're feeling self-conscious, right? So whatever the case may be, I'm going to be looking for what information do we need, what data do we need about your body to better understand the source of your weight gain, the source of your high blood pressure, the source of your diarrhea or constipation or whatever people are dealing with in the digestive front. So I'm gathering data, labs, and I'm using those labs to really understand what is going on in the body and also point to what we need to do, right? It's actionable information. With the information we gather through the labs, I get clear on our path forward to healing. And not only do I get clear, but you do, because to me, healing is a collaborative endeavor, right? In the kind of mainstream paradigm, how it's been is, obey the doctor, right? The doctor tells you what to do and you do the thing. But that's not really how healing occurs, right? Healing occurs in collaboration with one another. And I would also say in collaboration with the divine. So when we get the data part, my job is educating you. My job is making sure you understand your body, what's going on, how this information we've gathered, what it's telling us about your body, as well as the symptoms you're experiencing, and also why behind the recommendations, whether it's around making shifts to how you're fueling your body with food and beverages, or making shifts to your lifestyle, or making shifts to supplements. And typically it's a combination of all three brought together over time. But that data really helps us understand where we need to focus our energy and efforts such that you arrive at the future you intend.
Okay, okay. So there you go, folks. We understand where the information is coming from, from all that data that has been collected and how it's extrapolated and all of that. So, you know, from a spiritual concept, I remember in the Bible that Paul spoke about the body as a living sacrifice and as a temple. So, how do you define the concept of caring for your body as an act of devotion? How is that defined?
Yeah, well, I mean, I love what you just referenced there, Lorna, right? And caring for your body as an act of devotion, first of all, I believe begins with really getting like on a real deep level, not just in words, but in experience, what a gift our lives are, like truly deeply getting connected to what it's a privilege and a gift to be alive. And from that place, honoring our health as sacred. And honoring our health as sacred, those aren't just words. It is a way of being that moves us towards actions that are aligned with the truth that it is a gift to be here, that it is a privilege to be here, and also dancing in the reality that we're human beings, right? So for some people, they may hear that and feel badly when they think about how they've been treating their bodies, when they think about maybe it's alcohol, or maybe it's lack of sleep, or lack of movement, or nutrition. But the truth is, you just are where you are. So my wish is that no one experience a sense of shame in how they've been caring for their body, but they actually start to look at, well, okay, what if I really began relating to my life as a gift and the privilege of being alive? What if I started honoring my health as sacred? Like, what would be the first step I would take? Because changes don't all happen at once. And that's typically where people fail, is when people try to do everything at once, like the Whole30 approach, right? We all know what's happening on day 31 if it didn't happen on day 15, right? So, it's really, part of honoring your health as sacred is honoring your humanity, and
Right.
not honoring it as a scapegoat, but just getting like, hey, listen, I'm human. And if you can look in the mirror and say in earnest, I am doing my very best, then that's all you can do is your very best. And maybe if you're really struggling, you start to look for resources and people who can support you, whether that's me or communities or your friends. There's so many different ways you can be supported in your journey. But, it really does begin with getting on an experiential level that sense of gratitude and privilege for this gift of life.
I I agree with you so much on that because even even to breathe, we just breathe because we can breathe. But we have people right now, as you and I speaking, who's connected to a machine that's helping them to breathe.
Yes.
Simple as
Yeah.
that. Yes.
Right. And people who, for whatever reason, and again, I don't have judgment about this, but for whatever reason, maybe they just didn't, they weren't able, they got into smoking cigarettes at a young age, and they couldn't kick it, and now they have to walk around with oxygen, right? So it's like there are different variations, or just deal with the struggles of breathing, right? So to your point, it's like each deep breath we're able to take, oh my goodness, what a gift. And all of the magic that happens, when I was, in graduate school and studying the body deeply, learning those little things about how oxygen is exchanged in our lungs at the alveolar level, like it's I mean, it's a story not to be believed, only we know it's happening because we're doing it, right?
Yes, yes. Yes, that is so true. That is so true. But when I was speaking about the breathing part, that that came to me because of when we had COVID and so many people didn't have the machine, at their disposal. So that's why I brought that up. Something simple that we take. That's what I was actually thinking of the COVID situation that we
Yeah.
had. Yeah, yeah. So what are some of the daily habits that can transform this routine health practices into spiritual acts of devotion? What are some of the routine daily
Yeah.
habits that we can
Well,
pick
I
up?
would start with something preceding daily habits that can lead into daily habits. And that is what I like to call authoring your vision of vitality, your vision of
Mm,
vitality for your health in your life. And when I work with people to self-author towards self-authorship of their vision of vitality for their health and their life. And another thing we might call this is their deepest intention for their health and their life. And that marries the what and the why of their intention. And when this is done with presence and intentionality and authenticity, what people are left with is a sense of, oh, this is what I'm going towards, right? A whole new level of why around their health that wasn't there before. And so when I work with people, one of the things I encourage everybody to do is to create a bookend to their days, a bookend to their days. And at the beginning of their days, begin by connecting to their vision of vitality. Now, I appreciate those of you listening don't yet have a vision of vitality. That's okay. You could begin your day simply by envisioning in your mind and feeling it in your heart the health you intend. In doing that every day, and it doesn't need to be long, but I would say it does need to be daily, and maybe it's 60 minutes I'm sorry, 60 seconds,
mm,
1 minute of envisioning what it is to thrive in your body. And then you want to go about your day, right? Looking for the opportunities to bring that to life. And at the end of the day, you want to reflect on what you're proud of yourself for, and also where you could have done better and what you'll learn from it for the future. Right. So, fundamentally speaking, these bookends of the day, getting connected to our intention, getting connected to God, really. And then at the end of the day, checking in again. How did it go? And I do encourage starting with what are you proud of yourself for? I also encourage making sure you don't skip what you regret, because if you do that in earnest, you're going to find gems that you can put to use in the future.
I read that. And I understand where you're coming from, where you said that we have to do it on a daily basis because it reinforces and it becomes as natural as brushing our teeth after a while.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So you sort of spoke a little bit on it. What does mindfulness play? In the discussion a few minutes ago, you mentioned mindfulness. Do you want to elaborate on that in deepening our connections with our body?
Yeah.
Mindfulness.
Yeah, to me, mindfulness is such an essential component of this journey, right? We all have our habits of going on autopilot, and that autopilot serves us in many occasions, right? We don't need to, use tons of brain power in putting our groceries in the fridge, right? That's kind of like a routine thing. We can
Yeah,
go on
yeah.
autopilot with that, right? We don't have to use tons of brain power in brushing our teeth, right? Like you were saying, like that's pretty routine. We can go on autopilot with that, right? But to make shifts and make shifts that are lasting in our health, being mindful is your superpower.
Mm.
And it's ever evolving, right? There are always different angles of mindfulness we can discover that we haven't discovered before, no matter where we are. And we all have what we've mastered and what we've yet to master. And that's okay. That's, again, part of this evolutionary journey. So my wish for all of you is you arrive at a future where you look back at where you were with your health and you go, oh my goodness, I am so proud of who I've become,
Mhm.
who I've become with the guidance of God, with through honoring my health as sacred. I am so proud and grateful, not prideful, but proud of, it took a lot, right? And so that's a great, that's the future I wish. And then with that, it's always like, okay, great. Now what can I expand? Maybe I can inspire others, and maybe I already am inspiring others in stepping into their own health journey. Or maybe I'm going to expand my capacity to uh, learn something new in the physical world or mental world that I haven't before, right? So there's always more.
When I thought of mindfulness, I thought it meant like in the present.
Yes, and being in the present is definitely, yes, it's very much, I would say it's one aspect of it, but yes, being
Um,
mindful and in the present is really important, right? Because the habits we're looking to break, they're going to require we be mindful, right? If I'm working with someone, for example, maybe they know for themselves, everybody's in a different place, but maybe you're someone who you see, you have a habit of drinking more alcohol than is ideal
mhm.
for you. Maybe you're drinking 2 glasses of wine a week, but you know that actually women, it would be ideal to be at 4 or less. So,
Yeah.
that's a pretty decent gap if we're looking at the facts.
Yes, yes.
So, maybe that's where you look and you think, okay, great, I'm going to need to break this habit, right? When I come home from work and I have this habit of, oh, great, a glass of wine, I'm going to need to be present and come up with a new solution. I'm going to need to be present and really start to look at, what is that urge really coming from? Am I trying to self-soothe my overwhelm? Am I trying to self-soothe my boredom? Am I trying to self-soothe my loneliness? Like, what is that urge coming from? And that absolutely does require being present to see.
Right. Okay, that's good.
And the
Now,
same thing could be applied to food, right? I talked about
absolutely.
alcohol in that example,
Yeah,
but we could
yeah.
just as easily talk about food.
Food. Right, right. As we touch on food, I know that part of the problem uh, of taking care of our body, or the lack, in some cases, the lack thereof, has to do with uh, you know, just food being ready and at our fingertips. We can just call it Uber Eats.
Yeah.
I forget, I forget all the things that we shouldn't be eating.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right, like what's in our environment. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's a great place to begin, right? What is in our environment, right? There are people who I work with that I will, they'll say, yeah, I cannot, if there's a cookie around, I'm going to eat it. Okay, great. What's on your kitchen counter? Cookies. Okay, let's get those cookies off your kitchen counter, right? Like, but really,
Yeah.
it might, there was a woman who I worked with who she actually had her husband. He was fabulous. He was a supporter. Um, move his junk food to a closet upstairs, not downstairs in the kitchen. It went upstairs in a closet where the door was closed. So it wasn't in her immediate environment. So that's a great strategy, is just, even though it might initially seem like, what good is it going to do, get the things you can't resist out of your visual view. Maybe it means you get it out of your house. Maybe it means you put it in the pantry. Maybe it means you put it in the back of the fridge or the freezer, whatever the case may be. Just make sure it's not the first thing you see when you walk in the room or you open the pantry, etc.
Mm.
And put other things in there that are representative of your commitment. Maybe your bananas go on the kitchen counter instead of the cookies. Maybe you put an avocado on the kitchen counter, right? It really just like something that you see it that symbolizes, gives you the visual stimulation of, hey, I'm committed to my health. Look at
Right,
that.
right. But I need to confess, I love ice cream.
You love ice cream. Yeah. 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 And well, and what I would say, Lorna, is, you know, what I'm most interested when people like say that, right? It's like, I'm not interested in you never having ice cream again, unless you
Hmm.
see it's best for you to never have ice cream again.
Hmm.
I'm fine with you, right? But what I get curious about is, do you feel owned by ice cream, right? Do you have the sense that if you have one bite, it's like, oh my goodness, suddenly my spoon is hitting the bottom of the pint and I don't know what just happened, right? That's when I start to get a little curious about, like, okay, there's a sense of being owned by something that going on autopilot. And I used to work with a woman who she used to say, I don't know what happened. I blacked out and ate a pint of ice cream. I'm like, okay, listen, you did not black out. You were awake. And I understand the experience you're capturing, right?
Yeah.
But it starts by saying, like, instead of I blacked out, it starts with by owning it, by saying, I ate a pint of ice cream. Period. No stories. That's what I did. I did it,
Uh, uh,
right?
I tell my children sometimes, I tell them, I don't want to buy the ice cream. I just buy a small amount that I can eat at that particular time. But if I
Uh-huh.
put it in the fridge, it's gonna call me. Every time I pass that fridge, it's calling me. Ice
And
cream.
it's great to know that, Lorna. So my encouragement is, don't argue with your current reality, because it's not so much about the ice cream. It's about, okay, what is that overindulgence, which is different than indulgence. When
Right,
we overindulge, we have the sense of being owned by something, like I can't stop kind of a feeling,
right.
or the situation, like, oh, I have to do this to please someone else, or just kind of the actual craving, and
Mm-hmm.
it gets in the way of producing outcomes we care a lot about, we care most about.
Yes,
So for
yeah.
you, what does overindulgence of ice cream, what does it get in the way of? In other words, what health outcome that you care about is it a barrier to?
But clearly it would be my weight because I mean that a large consumption of ice cream is a lot of fat, it's a lot
Yeah,
of calories. I mean, you
yeah,
know, you're
yeah.
gonna have to do a lot of walking to get off that.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and I love that you said that, right? Because there's no a woman who I used to work with, she told me this and I was like, "Oh my gosh, you're exactly right. It's perfectly said. You can't outrun a cheeseburger. You can't outwalk a pint of ice cream. You can't. You just
You
can't.
can, yeah,
No, you
yeah,
can't, right? There's no one
yeah.
doing, and that's not good, bad, right, wrong. It's just true,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then I would ask you, the next question is, why do you care about your weight?
Because I want to be around to see my granddaughter, my great granddaughters. I want to be around as long as I'm healthy and can do things. I want to be around to enjoy my family and to see the fruits of my labor.
Yes.
You know.
And what's it like to be with your grandchildren?
I like to be able to run with them when they're playing in the park. I like to be able to push the bike when they're just learning to bike. I like to travel, so I like to enjoy different places and see different people and just have a different experience. And I can't do that if I'm not healthy. I can't do that, if I'm not
Yeah,
able to walk. I don't want to be in a what you call it there. I lost my train of thought. I want to be able to walk and to see things. I don't want to be, hooked up to any machine and just on a cruise and just sitting at in a chair or something and the the surf just crashing on me. So I want to be experiencing life at that time.
yeah, yeah. And I'd encourage to think about, like, okay, what is that beautiful future you intend? And really turn into your heart. You don't have to do it right now, but
Hmm.
really, like, take pen to paper and tell the story of, okay, in 5 years from now, if you could just click your heels, what's it like to be Lorna in 5 years from now? How is your health and vitality? What's the story? What are you able to do? Do you have great grandkids yet? Do you already have them, or is it just in the future?
No,
Yeah, yeah, I was
just
gonna say no,
grandchildren.
right. So, but telling the future of like, okay, this is where I'm headed, and doing it from like, what is it like to be with your family? The love you share, the joy you share, the juiciness you share,
Mhm.
because that's really what it's for.
I know it's attainable in my family because my grandmother died at 108 and she was mobile. She was,
Yeah,
so
amazing.
yeah, so I know it's attainable. Just,
Yeah,
as I said before, the different environments, she was in Jamaica, so,
ate whole food.
right. And she didn't like cars, so if she could walk in the way she walked.
Amazing. I love it.
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
man.
And even when she was in her late 90s, she used to clean the church. She used to clean the church and for preparation on Sundays. And
Yes.
when she couldn't clean anymore, she paid somebody to clean it for her. She was very dedicated to her church
Oh,
environment and doing things. So yeah,
right. And
yeah.
like that level of activity and
There you
engagement
go.
is so beautiful. That's awesome.
Yes. So I know it's attainable in my family. I just need
Yes, that's right.
to don't listen to the ice cream callings.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that is it. So if someone feels disconnected from the body, where should they start to rebuild the relationship? They're feeling disconnected. They don't, don't really like the body. They don't like what they see in the mirror. They don't like who they become. How,
Uh-huh.
mhm. How
A
you,
few different things. So one is I would encourage that person to look at the language they use about their body,
hmm
right? Sometimes it can be easy, especially in our culture, to perpetuate conversation conversations about what we don't like,
hmm
or visually, or what we're able to do, and things like that. So I'd encourage people to drop those conversations and start playing a game of what do I like, or what do I love, or what am I
right,
grateful about with my body. I'd start there with the language, right? Whether it's I love my eyes, maybe it's the color, maybe it's the fact that you can see
right,
those pretty lovable things, right? Maybe it's the way you're able to pick up and embrace your grandkids, how strong you are, right?
right,
Maybe it's the fact that you have a great sense of humor, right? Like it can
right,
be so many different things, right? But
right, right.
look at what you're grateful for that your body makes available. But then also beyond that, I would encourage someone who's disconnected to their body to start to move their body,
Right,
to
right,
start to move it in a way that's compelling to them. So that could be walking, that could be gentle yoga, that could be putting on music and dancing with someone else or alone, right? But looking at, can I start to get connected to how my body feels when I'm in it? And also, can I listen for the wisdom it has? I know for me, movement's always been a big part of my life, and I'm really grateful for that. But, you know, one of the biggest gifts I get out of movement is it's it's moving meditation for me.
hmm
Whether I'm lifting weights or I'm going for a walk or I'm doing yoga, there's this kind of, access to wisdom I find that I don't find in other places. And, I'm not saying that's going to be true for everyone, but I
right,
suspect a lot of you it could be true for if you just set aside the time and then also set aside the distractions, right?
right,
Actually put your phone down and turn it off or put it on airplane mode, or leave it behind if you can leave it behind. Whatever you're able to do, put it in the other room while you put on, you know or if you're playing music from your phone, turn it upside down so you can't be tempted by text and dance there.
right,
But
right,
just really setting aside some time to use your body and move your body. And then there are going to be some people who, quite frankly, their disconnect comes from unhealed traumas. whether those are big T traumas or little T traumas. And that person is, certainly going to benefit from counseling and maybe some somatic healing work. But even in that person, I would still encourage, what kind of movement can you do and feel safe doing physically in your
Right,
body?
right, right. You know, in some of the cultural and societal messages that undermined the whole sacredness of health, and how we how can we break free from them. I know, like in the culture and or when I was growing up, we were told that anything that's on your plate, you better eat it. you know so, you go up with that same sort of mindset until you understand, until you get the understanding of that you don't really need to do that. When your tummy is full, that's it, you just stop eating, you
Yeah,
know. So some of
yeah.
the cultural things that we inherit, um, you know,
Sure. Yeah, and
yeah,
different cultures have different things, but that's a common one, right? The clean
yeah,
plate club kind of
mm-hmm,
conversation. Yeah,
mm-hmm,
so it takes something to shift that, right? Either take a smaller portion and you can keep playing the clean plate club game, or you
yeah,
figure out like, okay, I'm gonna have leftovers, or you get, you know what, it would be a waste of my health to eat this. So either I have the choice of wasting my health or wasting the food, so to speak. And so for me, I'm going to choose wasting the food because I know it's not going to serve anyone if I waste my health. Uh,
mm-hmm.
I'm going to do my best not to waste food, but sometimes it might happen.
Yeah, yeah. But I know that for me, a smaller plate, just a smaller plate,
Yes,
mentally,
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
mentally, you haven't wasted anything because whatever is on the plate you eat.
Yes, exactly. And like that smaller plate strategy, Lorna, right? It works because we all like to feel like we're eating a lot, like it's just baked into our
Yeah,
cookie.
yeah,
So a
yeah,
smaller plate, we get the experience of having a full plate, but the quantity
yeah.
is less, and then you can eat it and enjoy it.
Practice, how do you help patients reframe their struggle with health? How do you help them
Yeah, well,
reframe it?
one of the big starting points for that is authoring their vision of vitality. So really getting
Okay, yes, you said that.
voting
Mm-hmm.
towards, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the situation when someone is very clear on their intention, right, they can, in the example of, alcohol, for example, or ice cream, either one really, right? If that's the barrier, right? If you're clear on your intention, you do get that the two can't coexist, right? You
Right,
can't fulfill the intention you intend and keep drinking alcohol the way you're drinking alcohol and keep, a habitual overindulgence, right? Like that
right, right,
thing, right? And so, it's helpful to really get like, I am in the driver's seat. I can be a yes to my intention, which means I'm going to be a no to these other things.
right, right,
Or I can be a no to my intention and be a yes to the other things, but there's no reality where they can both exist. So
right.
some of it starts with noticing where you uniquely argue with reality. And most of us are arguing with reality in some way, shape, or form, right?
True, true,
It's
yes.
just human nature, right? So if you know that it's this, and maybe there can be arguing with reality in the sense of like, oh, no, this time I'll just be able to have one bite of ice cream. I didn't get that from you at all. You know who you are, right? But some people might say every time they go to the store, I'm just going to have one cookie this time. I'm just going to have one bite of ice cream, and every single time they eat the whole container. Every
Right,
single time they eat 10 cookies, right? So arguing with reality might be simply begin with confronting your personal truth and
right,
going, okay, am I committed to my intended health future or not?
right.
And,
That's
and
true.
the other thing that I'd say about that is getting that we are all saying no to something. We're
Mhm.
all always saying no to something. And what I mean by that is you either say no, as I mentioned before, to your intended health future, or you say no to the ice cream, or you say no to that lots of alcohol, right? Or one or the other. but you can't, again, you can't be a yes to both. So you're always being a no to something. And even right now, we are a no to everything except for this.
Right, right.
Every other option that we have in life, we are a no to. So it can be kind of freeing in the sense that, wow, like I'm actually a no to everything, but the one thing I'm doing right now. So what does that allow for if I fast forward?
So I know that you mentioned about surrender to God's guidance. Is it from a biblical level? Because I know like in Proverbs and some of the parts of the Bible, it speaks about strong drinks. It speaks about gluttony. It speaks about, taking care of yourself, basically. So I'm not quite sure if that's what you were alluding to, or, you
For
want to.
me, actually less. And the reason being is that I understand oftentimes shame can come in when people reference, okay, the Bible says I should be doing this and I'm not.
Right,
It
right.
can feel very like bad me, I'm ashamed, like that. And the problem with that is I haven't found shame very effective in this area of
No,
life.
no, no, no,
Right?
doesn't.
Right. It
It's
was
true.
funny. I was talking to a friend and I said, shame isn't usually effective in the area of health. And he said, he laughed. He said, when is it effective? And I thought about it and I'm like, it's effective proactively. Like shame is effective proactively. If you do this, won't you be ashamed? It's like, okay, well, let me
Oh,
think about that,
oh, oh,
right?
okay. Yes,
Right.
I
But
get it. I get it.
shame's not very effective
No,
retroactively, at least
no.
not in the area of health, right?
Right.
So shame, look, in with how we've been treating ourselves is not typically super helpful. And so, surrendering to God's guidance to me really looks like I know for me, it was about in 2004 when I drew a line in the sand in my health. And what I really got was before that time, my health and my weight was a huge struggle, right? I rode what I like to call the weight loss roller coaster, and it was not fun. It wasn't fun. And in 2004, I was at my wit's end and I really just kind of threw up my hands and I said, God, please guide me in this area. There has to be a different way. Like, this isn't working. I don't feel like I'm grounded in love of any myself. I don't feel like I'm deeply connected to others. This is a barrier to me being the contribution I'm committed to being, to me serving others as I'm committed to serve others. And it was really when I kind of got that my struggle was a barrier to being of service and to being a contribution that I surrendered and asked for God's guidance. And I also made a promise that I would make my life about guiding others. Please show me and I will make my life about guiding others in this area of their lives. And that ultimately, over the course of years, I really did. I gathered the science-backed information I needed. I integrated the wisdom of others I encountered and books I read, and I would say divine wisdom along the way, and ultimately led me to get 2 graduate degrees so that I could do what I do. But
Mhm.
there does, at least for most of us, I think there needs to be a moment of real, just like, I don't know the way forward. Please show me.
Mhm, mhm. So what would you say to someone who, they've done all these different weight loss, different weight loss activities, and they failed repeatedly in their health journey? What would you say to them? What would you say to them today if they're listening to this program,
Two
this
things I would
podcast?
say: work with me.
All right, good.
Right?
Good,
I would
good,
say
good.
work with me, right? This is what I'm here for, right? Like no
Right.
joke. And if you look at my reviews on Google at Well Empowered, you'll see that this is what I'm here for. The second thing I would say is really know, like, you inherited a way of approaching this area of your life that
Mm-hmm.
you didn't make up and doesn't work, right? You were born into a paradigm around your weight and around food and around health. And it is one that I like to call the all or nothing approach. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of overindulgence and deprivation, overindulgence and deprivation, and cycling between those two. And the
Right.
thing with these cycles is that whether it's overindulgence or deprivation, they are both acts of self-aggression. They are both acts that lead us feeling not proud of the way we've cared for ourselves. And so you didn't make that up. And there's another way of navigating this. And that's what I call mastering your middle ground. And, in addition to bringing the science and the data in, that is the work I bring in. That is the work of you self-authoring what it is to find that sweet spot, that not too tight, not too loose way of living and being that allows you to be fully present and experience all the joys of this life and maximally contribute and really be proud of the way you are honoring your health as sacred.
Okay, what are some of the lifestyle habits backed by science that align with the faith-based living?
I'm sorry, say that again.
What are some lifestyle habits backed by science? We're going back to your data,
Yeah.
yeah, the scientific findings that
Yeah,
you.
I mean, so it could be the scientific findings may be around supporting your blood sugar or replenishing certain nutrients that are low and perpetuating cravings, by way of them being low. The science part may be around um, bolstering your omega-3 fatty acids so that your hormones are more stable, your hormone receptors work a little better. So the data-driven aspect of it's going to be different for different people, the specifics of it. Mhm.
Okay. So when somebody comes to you, you do send up a different blood tests, or what do you do
Yes.
when somebody comes to you?
Exactly, exactly. I have them complete a wide variety of blood tests. The blood tests I have them complete are fundamentally dictated by who they are and where their health is and where they're committed to being. So it's not like a one size fits all
Mm,
panel. There are
mm,
certainly some labs I'm going to want on everyone, but not everything. But
mm.
we order those lab tests based on what's needed for that person, and we use that information to guide our path forward.
Okay. So so how can people distinguish between external health trends and what truly works for their body? We have so many different trends. How can they distinguish?
Yeah. Well, one thing to really tap into is just with the trends, does this seem like a good idea? Just like intuitively does it, right? Two is this so extreme I couldn't maintain it forever? Three is, does this feel like an act of self-aggression? Right. So those are the three checkpoints I would ask people to look at. They may not know the first one, like, does this seem like it's going to produce the outcomes I care about? They may not, but they probably can get a sense of, could I do this forever? Because if it's not a sustainable action, it's not a sustainable outcome. And if it's not a
Okay.
sustainable outcome, it's not a sustainable solution to me, right? It's nothing I'm going to vote for. That's going to be tied into, if this really feels like an act of self-aggression, then it's probably not going to be sustainable or not anything I'd want you to sustain. So that those are some of the things that I'd look at when people are trying to make, sense of the latest fad diet out there.
Yeah. Well, you know what? A lot of persons don't realize that some of these persons that they see in these bikini, whatever it is, that they those things are just props. They things to the body to to let it look smaller than what it is, but in reality, it isn't real. So we need to
It's
be conscious of that
true.
too.
Yeah, a lot of what we're seeing is not real. And then the other part of it is okay, maybe the 0.5% that is real, it's like we all have our wonders, just like different parts of the world have their wonders. We all have
Yeah.
our wonders, and you know, I strongly believe that there's so much, there's so many things that we can discover when we begin the practice of looking at the wonders of our own unique body. Um, it radically shifts what's available over time rather than,
Yes.
again, we've inherited conversations about, talking about what we don't like about our body. It's just part of the inherited paradigm. And, one of the reasons is guess what? It makes a lot of money, right? Having people feel like they'd be more lovable or more fulfilled or make more money or whatever the case may be if they looked a certain way, right? That when people push those hot buttons, they can sell products and their company can make money, right? So
Mhm.
there's just getting down to business on that. It's like, yeah, no, are those really the conversations you want to marinate in? And also what really pokes those conversations, what fuels them? Like, do you follow certain accounts on social media that every time
Right.
you don't feel good about yourself? Well, guess what? Unfollow them. You can do
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was watching, I don't remember which judge it was on television the other day, and this lady was suing her plastic surgeon because he did a butt surgery on her and the butt was too small. It wasn't, and then he
What
did
a
another one.
hoot. What a hoot.
He said it was too big, and I'm like, lady, I didn't see anything wrong with her. She looked quite good, oh, she was. I'm like, so, and it was $6,000 or 10,000, some ridiculous money like that. And I'm like, come on.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Yes, and this, a lot of people losing their life too because some of these people going to these doctors who injecting things in the bloodstream, and so at what price people risking their life, for some of
yeah,
these surgeries is ridiculous because every surgery carries a risk. And don't care how simple it is, it carries a risk. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yep,
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 absolutely.
yes.
Absolutely.
So that was a bit amusing at the time when I was watching it. I'm like, really?
Yes. Yeah, that is funny.
Yeah. So how do you personally stay grounded in
Uh,
both the science and spiritual aspect of your work? How do you stay
Yeah,
grounded?
how do I practice staying grounded? Well, I do practice
What you
the bookends
preach?
of, yeah, I practice what I preach. Exactly. I, the bookends of my day, communing with the divine, those are important to me. And continuing to ask for guidance and um yeah, I mean, I feel my body, the way I feel my body has evolved over time. And, I say that in service of acknowledging that change does take time. And
Mhm.
how I eat and feel my body now is different than how I did 15 years ago and how I did even 10 years ago. And so just being in the looking of like, okay, what's the next thing to take on? And, how I rest now is different and how I prioritize sleep now I didn't, well, younger me didn't prioritize sleep. Okay.
It's
I
true.
wish I would have, but I didn't, so now I
Yeah,
do. But it's, things like that. And, those are some of the things that are just really
yeah,
parts of my days.
yeah, yeah. All right, this has been very interesting. So the last question, if listeners will take away just one core message about this health from this conversation, what would you want it to be?
I would want it to be an encouragement to slow down and get connected to the wonders of you, the wonders of who you are, the wonders of your body, the wonders of your life. Like really slow down and get present to the wonders of you. And, see if you can tap into that sense of, wonder and gratitude for this gift of being alive on a daily basis
Mhm.
at least twice a day. and see if you can start to make choices, even small choices.
Right.
Maybe it's one glass of wine instead of two, or three glasses of wine instead of five. Maybe it's three pieces of pizza instead of five. Maybe it's, we could go on and on and on. Maybe it's a
Right.
5-minute walk instead of
Sitting
nothing.
at television.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly. So we could go on and on and on and what variations of those games, but my encouragement is to get grounded in the wonder and the gratitude of you for you and your life, and start to look at what are new ways you might express that gratitude and reverence. Um, Small ways, they don't need to be big, but they do need to be consistent and
right.
and grown over time.
Right. That's beautiful. That's such a beautiful way to end our this is was such a knowledgeable um and you were so full of wisdom, so we thank you for sharing your wisdom, your passion, and your heart for us today. It was really really a remarkable conversation and very
Thank you,
informative.
Lorna. It's such a pleasure to
Yes,
be here with
yes.
you and your community.
Yes. So would you mind telling our audience how to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you
If you
can
have any
find
freebies
me,
or anything?
yeah, at wellempowered.com. That's well, EMPOWERED.com. You can find me there, and you can schedule a complimentary consultation. So that goes for someone who would like to explore working together, or someone who just wants to hop on, say hello, ask me a few questions. You can
All
schedule a
right.
complimentary consultation there. And if we do proceed in working together, make sure you let me know where you found me, because you will be gifted with 10% off. And then you can find me on Instagram at Well Empowered.
Okay. All right. I will put that in our in for the podcast in the narrative. I'll put all of that information in there that people be able to get in touch with you. So you remember that your well-being isn't just about habits and routine. It's about embracing a deeper connection with yourself and the path you're meant to walk. Until next time, take care of yourself, mind, body, and spirit.